Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today my calendar says YouTube filming morning, which is just ideal because my hair needs washing to beyond acceptable levels. I've got the biggest cold sore ever seen by humanity, which I've caked a plaster and makeup over, but it's still kind of, in my imagination at least, bigger than my head. But the schedule says YouTube filming, so YouTube filming there will be. Today we are going to talk about agents, the good, the bad and the ugly of the literary agent world. Before we do that, please subscribe to the channel if you are interested in writing and publishing content. That is what I provide here every Friday. And if you haven't been here before, welcome. I am Alison. I write as Juliet Bell and 50%. No, that's not right. I write as 50% of Juliet Bell, all of Alison May and all of... No, that's not right. I write as 50% of Juliet Bell, all of Alison May and all of Ali Sinclair. Ali Sinclair most recently. Brand new book cover. We'll be talking more about that next week, so come back for that. Available for pre-order as well. New book, very exciting. But this week we are talking about agents. So, for those of you who live on publishing Twitter with the same sense of obsession that I do, you will have seen certain things kicking off a little bit this week to do with a particular literary agency, predominantly representing Irish authors. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to the Authors Guild statement about that whole affair below, so you can catch up on all of that if you wish to do so. But that led me thinking about agents. Led me to thinking about agents. Do you need one? Should you have one? How do you find a good one? All of that stuff, because looking for a literary agent is very much an area where it's a question of writer beware. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have an agent. I have an agent. I love my agent. She's a thing of wonder and beauty, and I'm a better writer because I have her, because she has insanely high standards for me, and that encourages me to have insanely high standards for myself, which is a good thing. So for me, having an agent has been great, but for lots of authors it isn't necessarily great, and it hasn't been great, and I think it's really important that we're honest about that and we talk about that. So, when you're first submitting your book, when you're first querying, if you're looking for an agent, the idea of getting an agent feels like the finishing line in a race. I can't talk today. It feels like the finishing line in a race. It feels like that's the prize. So the idea that once an agent offers you representation, you might say, nah, feels completely incomprehensible at that point. But you may well find yourself in a situation where an agent offers you representation and your instinct is to say, nah. And in that case, you probably should say, nah. Because an agent-client relationship is a relationship. Doesn't mean you have to be best friends. You may end up being best friends. Fair enough if you do, but you don't have to be friends. It's a professional relationship, but it is a relationship. And it's a relationship which is slightly complicated because your agent works for you, but at the same time, your agent also advises you. You're accepting that there are some bits of this industry that they know more about than you do, so you're taking advice from them, but at the same time, they work for you. You're the decision maker in the relationship. So it's quite a complex relationship, and it can be a tricky relationship to negotiate. And it can be even trickier if your agent... Ooh, I just hit my camera there, sorry. It can be even trickier if your agent is not dealing with you honestly and fairly. So, what are the red flags that you should look out for when you're deciding whether to sign with an agent who's offered you representation? The first thing I would be wary of is if you get the impression that an agent just expects you to sign straight away, without asking questions, without having a discussion about how it might work, that is a huge red flag. Any agent who's offering you representation they want the relationship to work for them as well, or they should want the relationship to work for them as well. They should be thinking in the long term. They shouldn't just be thinking, oh, well, the book they've submitted to me is decent, I can make some money selling this and then whatevs. You hope that they're going to be thinking about the long term. So you should be having a conversation early about how you both like to work, how you are going to deal with financial things. So when they collect royalties, how often do they pay out? What percentages are they taking? What percentages are they taking on additional rights sales? All of that stuff. They should be prepared to talk to you about how they like to work on a day-to-day basis. If they're like a phone person and you're totally an email person who has a panic attack every time the phone rings, just that alone might mean it's not the right relationship for you. If they're a phone person to whom you can say, I actually find unscheduled phone calls quite stressful, can we schedule calls or can you email me first, then that might be fine. But even little practical things like that might be deal breakers. And I know it sounds silly, but if you're going to be stressed out every time you talk to your agent, that's not going to work as a relationship long term. Also, talk about where they see your career going. Is it in line with where you would like your career to go? If they have a vision for where they want to take you that's different from where you want to go, are they prepared to discuss that and find common ground and move closer to where you want to end up? If they think that where you want to go isn't realistic, can they explain to you why not? All of those things. If they just come in and say, you're going to be the next Barbara Erskine, and you have no interest in being the next Barbara Erskine, you thought you were going to be the next Richard Osman or the first Julia Blogs, whatever you might be, if their vision just doesn't line up with yours at all, that might be a deal breaker. If they're constantly going to be pushing you in a direction that you don't feel confident, don't feel comfortable, don't feel interested in going, that could be a problem. Flip side, they could be opening up to new opportunities that will work really well for you. So it could be great. But if they're really pushing you in a direction that you just don't want to go, that could be a deal breaker. So any agent that isn't prepared to have those conversations early doors, that's a huge red flag. Secondly, be wary of any agent who expects you to be grateful, subservient, forelock tugging, that they've deigned to give you their attention. That's not the right relationship for an agent-client relationship. It's a relationship of equals. You are both bringing an expertise to the table, which when you put them together should be mutually beneficial and hopefully mutually profitable over time. If their attitude is that you are the little baby author and you should be curtsying and backing out of the room and bowing and grovelling, that they have deigned to consider taking you on or deigned to reply to your email, no, run like the wind. You're supposed to be working together and ultimately you're the decision maker in that relationship. So they should be coming to you with an attitude of collaboration, of openness, of wanting to be on the same team, not with an attitude of, oh, you're very lucky that I have chosen you. That is not how you build a working relationship. Similarly, be wary of any agent who seems to expect you to be obedient, to do what they tell you. Again, it's teamwork, it's collaboration, they're not in charge. So they might say to you, would you be interested in writing X, or would you be interested in an IP project, or would you be interested in writing a sequel to this book? Those sorts of things. But they shouldn't be saying to you, well, next you're going to write a sequel. That should be a conversation. They should say, could say, selling this would be much easier, I think, if we could sell it as a 2-book deal and if we had a sequel that was pretty much ready to go. Okay, that's fine, we can have a conversation. But next you're writing a sequel, they're not in charge. They shouldn't be expecting unquestioning obedience to their whims. All of that makes agents sound like terrible, terrible people, and mostly they aren't. But publishing is an industry like any other, and in every industry, most people are lovely, and some people really aren't. And some people want to work with you and want to work to mutual goals and want to work for the benefit of both of the people in the relationship. And some people are just in it for themselves. And that's not specific to publishing, that's just the state of humanity. But you need an agent who you are going to be able to work with. You don't want to be in a situation where you email your agent, don't hear from them for months, and feel anxious about chasing it up in case you're in trouble with them. If I email my agent and don't hear from her within a few days or a week, and I email her again to say, hey, did you get this? I would expect the first line of her reply to either be, oh no, I didn't get that, or to be, oh, I'm really sorry, whatever. And that's fine. We all miss emails. We all sometimes take longer to reply than at other times. Sometimes we get busy. Sometimes we have illness and family problems. And all of that life stuff happens, and it happens to agents the same as it happens to everyone else. But keeping you hanging on a thread in a situation where you are nervous of talking to them about it, that's not a working relationship, and that's not a relationship that's going to work. So that was my whistle-stop tour of some big agent red flags. Just because an agent is from a big name agency or they represent some big names doesn't mean they're going to be the right agent for you. You have to feel confident in the relationship, and you have to feel like it's going to be collaborative, like it's going to be teamwork, and like they're going to listen to and respect your point of view in the relationship as well. And if you're not getting that, I would say at that point, you're probably better off being unagented. I know lots of very successful authors who are unagented. It's entirely possible, particularly with the number of digital first imprints around that tend to take unagented submissions these days. There are lots of options for which you don't need an agent, similarly self-publishing, where you don't need an agent. I tend to think that agent relationships in a lot of ways are like romantic relationships, not in the emotional dependence sense. Really, they shouldn't be emotionally dependent, they are professional relationships, but in the sense that a good, healthy romantic relationship enhances both of your lives, and in agent-client terms enhances both of your careers. But a bad relationship, a dysfunctional relationship, a toxic relationship, you're a million times better off being single, a million times better off being single. So definitely better to have no agent than to have a bad agent. It's one area where I would say you shouldn't be compromising, you shouldn't be putting up with something that isn't working. Yeah, here endeth the agent lesson. Any questions or comments about agents, about finding an agent, about what to ask if an agent offers you representation, stick them in the comments below and we will talk about those in a future video. Do subscribe to the channel, and for now, thank you. I will see you next week.